So again, good afternoon, welcome. Thank you for joining us for the last of our Experts Talk webinar series. My name is Unique Saunders and I serve as an Associate Director of Enrollment here at McLean. And I'm pleased to have here all three of our coordinators of learning services. So we have with us Karen Hundle from the upper school. We have Becky Stewart from our middle school, and we have Michelle Fitzgerald from our lower school. So today they will be discussing how McLean School provides embedded classroom support in executive functioning skills. A hallmark of McLean's transformative approach to education is that we meet the needs of all learners, focusing first on their strengths and supporting any challenges they might have. So our presenters will be digging into just how that's done with bright students who have challenges with executive functioning here at McLean. So I hope that you find today's webinar informative. I'd like to ask that you save your questions for the end, where we'll have a dedicated time for our Q&A. Throughout the session, feel free to chat me. Again, my name is Unique Saunders, so send questions directly to me as they come up, and I will save them until the very end. Do note that we will be recording today's webinar, but we will only be recording our speakers. And we will send a copy to all of you who have joined us today. So with that being said, I will turn it over to our experts.
All right, thank you so much, Unique. Again, like she said, I'm Becky Stewart, and at McLean School, we know that executive functioning encompasses far more than just organization or time management, which are usually the skills that we think of first. And we know that we're building up life skills, and we are going to be modeling, teaching strategies, and supporting students in becoming independent with those. You can see that chart there, and it kind of, again, gives you a visual of what executive functioning involves, but we want students to be able to regulate their emotions so that they can actually be open to problem solving when they're faced with multi-step tasks. We want them to have strategies they feel comfortable using both inside and outside of the classroom. Life asks us all the time to prioritize, remember steps, initiate tasks, complete them by certain deadlines. We know that we have to advocate sometimes for extensions all of the time. And so at McLean, again, we understand that, and we really make it a priority to embed time to practice and model these skills throughout the day.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Fitzgerald. Like Unique said, at McLean, we realize that challenges in executive functioning can stem from a lot of different areas. Sometimes we can see students who have challenges with working memory or processing speed be affected by not having those strategies for the executive functioning skills, but we also see it with ADHD, and even anxiety can be connected with that as well. And what we do is we help students understand how they learn and what they're good at. And that can help them, and we can help them use those strategies to work through and around the difficult areas. And for example, even if a student struggles with organizing, that doesn't mean that they don't have great ideas. So we use those great ideas to foster the strengths and recognize them, and use that to support the challenges rather than seeing it as a nuisance or a negative, but as actually a positive.
Hi, Karen Hundle, I'm the upper school coordinator. And one of the things we do by embedding support in the classwork, or so embedding supports in the class, this really works not just for students who struggle with executive functioning, but also for those who don't. By providing this to everyone in the classroom, it enables students to learn without singling out some students as sort of different. Our teachers have toolboxes of strategies and don't come to the classroom with the expectation that students either understand things the way we teach them, or they just don't fit in. If a student is struggling in a class to organize writing, for example, we think of how to shift our teaching rather than sending students out to a learning specialist for support.
You're muted, Becky.
I had to mute myself because it's passing time in the middle school, and they're not quiet in the middle school. So I apologize for that. Can you hear me now, though?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as I was saying to myself, many of our faculty at McLean have taken courses or been in professional development at McLean to learn about research by Sarah Ward. She's a speech and language pathologist and an educator with over 25 years of experience and expertise specifically in executive function research. Her research shows there's an integral connection between being able to visualize a task and being able to complete that task. Some of us do this intuitively. When a teacher says a project is due and you need to create a poster, we're visualizing that poster. We can see what it might look like. But many students who struggle with that task of visualization, they just need explicit time to practice it and develop that skill. Because their brain just doesn't automatically or naturally activate that process when they're given a task.
And so our support needs, it meets the developmental needs of each of the groups within each of the divisions. And so we're going to go through each division, starting with lower school, and kind of share some of the strategies and the support that we give within each of our areas. And so that means that starting in lower school, we really support that executive functioning support is really directed by the teacher, and it's very hands-on and very working together in the group within the whole class. And we are using it constantly, and it's intertwined into all of our classes that we do and continually reinforced. We provide a really strong foundation, which can then build up independence as it becomes more developmentally appropriate. And Becky and Karen will speak on that as they get into middle and upper. But we also prioritize the support in the emotional development and emotional awareness, because what we find is that in focusing on that piece of understanding feelings and how to cope with that and manage that, it allows the students to be more available to learning the new strategies to support the executive functioning. All right. So here are some examples of how we lay the foundation in the lower school, using techniques that we've learned from Sarah Ward. And one of that is, and it's kind of the general idea is organized belongings equals organized body and the organized mind. And when they're all together, they help support them with the executive functioning skills. So you can see on the left are an example of photos that we use that are posted in the classroom of going through morning routine. And like Becky said, it's important to structure and scaffold that visualization, because while some students have that intuitively, a lot of our students with executive functioning challenges really lack that ability to actually visualize what they need to do. So we talk as a group at the beginning of the year of the different things that we need to do in the morning. Then we walk through it together and kind of talk through it as we walk through it. And then we take these pictures so that the students can see themselves actually performing it. And that helps with the visualization beyond just a clip art picture or words listing it. The pictures of them actually doing it helps with that visualization. And then we also use we also emphasize growing independence when navigating routines, such as the picture on the right, where the students come in and when they greet their teachers, they get a little clothespin with their name on it, and they're responsible for organizing what their after school plans are, and then shifting that if things change. So kind of taking some of that ownership, but still having that structure and the foundation based on the teacher support as well.
And Michelle, can I just jump in real quick? Because I want to just highlight something awesome from the kindergarten program. My son's in kindergarten this year, and they actually did a cross-curricular activity with their routine where the kids had to sequence first, second, third through 6. And each of them, like she said, had their own individual pictures taken for those tasks. And we have implemented the same thing at home, where we have pictures of our morning routine at home so we can get out the door on time. So I just wanted to highlight that I really appreciated how they found ways to talk about math concepts within executive functioning for kindergarten.
Thank you, Becky. Yeah, that's awesome. And it's great because a lot of it ties, Sarah Ward focuses, the connection between the things that are at school can also be tied to at home, like you mentioned, and continuing that routine in both areas. Okay, so then on the next slide, you'll see some kind of building on that is, in addition to physical organization and body awareness as moving through routines, the idea of being aware of time is really important, and the passing of time. And so we have a lot of strategies in put into the classroom for everybody to kind of build that awareness of it. The first picture you'll see is that in the classrooms, there are calendars posted, large calendars on the whiteboard so that they're interactive, that kids can see what's coming up. We keep what was done in the past, and so that they can see the past as well and kind of see in relationship to what today is, what has already happened and what will be coming up. This helps also with, like I had mentioned before, the anxiety piece as well, creating those routines and helping the students build those executive functioning skills positively affects that decrease in anxiety. And in the middle of the picture, you'll see one of our lower school teachers modeling the use of a working clock. Lower school is very dedicated to this strategy from Sarah Ward because it helps to really understand and see in a concrete way that passing of time. Analog clocks seem to be a thing of the past, but they're so important with executive functioning skills because with a digital clock, there's no sense of passing time. And then some schools do use something called like a time timer, which is kind of, you turn it to how much you want and it's a red color and then it slowly goes away. But with that, you don't see how much time has passed. And so this strategy where the teachers color in with whiteboard markers, dry erase markers, the different parts of their lesson on the clock. And as the minute hand passes through that, the students can see that passing of time. And that is super valuable. And the idea of them taking ownership of seeing how long will an activity take. Sometimes, a lot of times the teachers will say, how long we're going to do this activity. How long do you think it will take? And we do that back and forth conversation with the kids as well, so that they kind of are able to estimate a little bit better, so that when they're doing a task, some kids get really overwhelmed. Oh, this is going to take forever. If they have that executive functioning strategy or awareness of understanding time, they can it will ease their anxiety, and that they know that, I thought it was going to take an hour, but really it only took us 15 minutes, and kind of that talking with time. And then finally, the last picture is a picture of our schedules, our daily schedules in the classroom. And this is something new that we're implementing this year through, which is an idea from Sarah Ward, but visually modifying our schedules so that you can see a longer period that is more time will be a bigger piece of our schedule, as opposed to, say, lunch and recess are a little bit smaller than our writing period, so that then the students are continually seeing that awareness of how much time things are and the connection to that as they feel it and experience it. And then beyond the classroom support that we provide for everyone, it is also helpful to target and individualize support for some of the students that have specific needs in executive functioning. So it's very common for students to have individual checklists. And as you can see, kind of like what Becky and I had spoke about before with the pictures, instead of making a routine checklist for this specific student, and there's a picture of a book and a picture of a lunchbox, we went around with the student and took pictures of those actual things that he needed to do before he was done getting ready in the morning. And then we laminated it and he checks that off every morning. And then in addition, creating a specific daily schedule for a student so that they can see what they've already done, what they're doing now, what they can expect, and then they interact with it and shift it as the day goes on. And then finally, kind of a bigger piece of the organization, going back to the kind of basics physical organization piece of executive functioning. In lower school, we do a lot of color coding, and we have a place for everything. And so the students are taught at the beginning of the year where each thing belongs and what that process of putting things away and taking them out are. And so that's building that support of that management of their materials. In fourth grade, which is our last year in lower school at McLean, we focus a lot on building in this idea of having a binder that they take to their different small groups for academics, where they keep a central location for their schedules and organize their homeworks. It creates that responsibility that they're carrying it around, because in middle school, that responsibility increases where they have that a similar binder, but a little more robust and more strategies, and that gets passed around. So kind of scaffolding that support so that they're starting to build that organization piece even in lower school. And then the students also practice setting goals and to work on that perseverance and the self-control, and they and during challenging tasks, and we do that through classroom goals and lower school goals that we have throughout the division. And if they follow and work towards those goals, we earn pledge points. And even within the pledge points, we help them with that physical organization where they have drawers as a class and they organize those. And there's a process in creating those procedures intentionally so that we're building in those routines. And then the students are able to feel a little more comfortable. And then as they leave lower school, they go to middle school and that support shifts.
Yes. So again, the support for students at McLean is adjusted to be developmentally appropriate. So in middle school, we're transitioning gradually away from the teacher-directed to provide students with a little bit more ownership of their learning as they prepare for upper school. But we know that it's not a linear process. It would be lovely if it was, but if students face setbacks, we'll work with them to determine a plan that they feel that they can engage in to start to build up that independence and confidence again. So again, you heard Michelle talking about the social emotional piece is really important. Having confidence, not catastrophizing that there's too much on their plate, and just really identifying strategies that are going to work with for them throughout their educational career or their life. And then I'm just going to go over in middle school. Yes, great. You're on the right side. Over some of the layers of support, as you heard Karen talk about at the beginning, we embed everything in the classroom. And if we provide it for one student, we want to provide it for everybody, and it destigmatizes the idea that, oh, I need this additional support. So everybody at McLean School gets the supports listed here. And there's going to be more variation in their schedule. They're going to have more teachers throughout the day in middle school. So we really want to just provide that consistency by, again, embedding the same supports in all their classes. We really push that the teachers are the experts. We don't need a pull-out resource specialist, or even ourselves. We're not the learning specialist that students go to. We support the teachers, but our teachers are really experts in these areas and can support. And these supports are very similar to those that we saw in lower school and that they're going to see again in upper school, but will look different just to match their developmental needs from 5th to 8th. So teachers are prepared with strategies to gain student attention, to check for understanding, to help students initiate tasks, assist students to reflect on their progress. And so we'll look at a couple of examples on the next slides of what this classroom support looks like in the middle school. So here, again, executive functioning support extends to student use of technology as well. As you can see with this graphic from an 8th grader teacher's classroom, and again, we're going to move to Chromebooks devices for 5th through 8th next year. That's our goal. But we really want to, again, we're helping with typing skills, which is important, but also device expectations. Those are laid out in the first week of school. We want them to be charging their Chromebooks every night. We want to get them in the habit of bringing their devices to school and from school. We want Chromebooks to go into their cases, and we want those to stay there until they're asked to be taken out. So a lot of teachers will have, again, really explicit expectations around when they can or cannot play a game. They'll put them away if they're not needed. They'll leave them closed. All those instructions are worked in to their workflow so that they, again, understand the clear expectations and don't have a distraction there if the device is not needed, which again is a really big skill as technology becomes more important. The next slide here is showing that, again, every student in middle school is going to be provided with and required to use their planner to track work assigned and to track due dates. Every classroom also has some version of an agenda or homework board. This picture here, you can see the teacher projected the assignments that would be written down, and then again, the student writes it in the planner. They just get into the habit of learning that they need to take out their planners, they need to write down that work. And teachers will go around and actually initial the planners to make sure that the work has been written down correctly, that it's legible. They'll rewrite it for the students if needed. And oftentimes it's a good communication tool with parents as well. So we have small class sizes, generally 10 to 12 students. So it doesn't take very long for teachers to make sure that they go around and do that one-to-one check-in with students to be sure that there's clarity around what the homework is, when it's due, and advisors and homeroom teachers at the end of the day will also review those planners to discuss what they might need to bring home at the end of the day. So the next layer of support that I just mentioned a little bit, but also every student at McLean in the middle school that takes part in is our homeroom for 5-6 and our advisory for 7-8 program. It allows them to begin and end their day with dedicated time to manage supplies, clean out their locker, their backpack, their binder, check their grades. So again, it's all about that embedded support, and the homeroom and advisory program are really big pieces of that. So here's some images and pictures of how we support with the supplies. Because, we dedicate time to these tasks, because to remove the excuse that you're often going to hear about, I have no time to organize my stuff. This is the opportunity for them to do that. We'll even have students take a picture at the beginning of the year of a clean locker, and we will put that in their locker as a visual representation of what that clean locker looks like. So each week when we return to cleaning out lockers, that they know when they have met their goal of getting rid of paper items and things like that. And this is also a really good time for students that have EF strengths to actually share tips and strategies, work with a peer. Let's go through your locker together. Let's go through your binder. Let's sort the papers out together. We really want them to be, again, learning from each other and being able to highlight if they do have a strength in this area and share tips. So that is, the binder organization, the backpack locker checks. I hope that gives you a good idea of what our advisory homeroom programs. And then for grades 7 and 8, so our homeroom and advisory program paired with classroom instruction and routines really provides the foundation for executive functioning skills and practice for all students in middle school. But because the academic demands increase in 7th and then again in 8th grade to prepare them again for the upper school, the rigor of our college prep program, we offer additional layers of support for them. So now they are given a study hall, which can replace an elective in grades 7 and 8. And this is for students who would benefit from more time in the day to complete their work, collaborate with a peer, to study, or ask teachers questions. We've intentionally created the schedule so that nearly all of their teachers are not teaching, and they are available during that study hall time, so students have access to teacher support. Study hall is also a layer of support we know will be available to them as they enter upper school. And this is an example slide of a get ready, do done visual that I use in my study halls. Again, the get ready, do done is taken from Sarah Ward. We've adapted that, where again, they visualize the done, they plan backwards, and then they execute forward. And they really get an idea of what do you need to have ready, what are the steps that you need to execute, and what would it look like to be done. So this is a slide that just shows when students have completed missing or incomplete work, just a reminder how to write emails. So that's, again, a really important skill, is building up some advocacy, some independence, and building all these routines in so students automatically think to communicate with teachers when they turn in an assignment late. So, and if necessary, We may even further structure student study hall time so that they're actually meeting individually with teachers on a rotating schedule throughout the week. Only about 5% of students will need that support. But, this could also involve the study hall teacher working with students to develop plans that will help them manage their workload. This process also allows students to learn advocacy skills, build comfort, having difficult conversations. Remember that emotional piece can be difficult to overcome. They're going to say, no, I don't have questions. No, I don't need to talk to the teacher. And we try to, again, allow them to build some comfort in engaging, and we want to normalize asking for help and allowing students to practice managing all those emotions that come up when they do have to talk to teachers. So over time, the process becomes less scary because, they get better at formulating questions. They realize that teachers are just human beings, and that we're on the same team and we're here to support them in meeting their goals. And then you see here that one of, our most intensive layer of support in middle school is really going to involve the parents in a more systematic way. All parents receive emails from individual teachers when concerns arise and have access to the portal to check grades. But this support is going to streamline that communication, put us all on the same page, remind students that they're the most critical part of any plan that we create, and we need them to really be engaged in that process. And if you, so along with the Get Ready Do Done from Sarah Ward's research, it also emphasizes the importance of being able to visualize time. As you saw with the lower school, they use the working clock. In middle school, we move toward, a daily schedule of times and really blocking out when will you accomplish certain tasks. They say I'm going to do my homework tonight, but do you have a game tonight? When are you going to eat? Are you going to sleep? Right? Prioritizing all of these things is really important. When are you going to take a break? We know that you will want to engage in a preferred activity. Make sure that you put that on your schedule. So again, research shows working in 20-minute blocks of time is really best. And you can see this is a Saturday schedule example that I created with a student 2 years ago, who was again receiving that intensive study hall support. These went home to parents so that they could see what the student had decided they were going to accomplish, and then just again holding them accountable. So we're helping them manage time better, not catastrophizing, and not imagining that an assignment's going to take too long, because then they'll never begin the task. And I'll pass it over to upper school where they kind of build upon that.
Yes. So in the upper school, our goal is to meet students where they are and to help them discover and build on their strengths and skills and transition really to the independence that they'll need by the time they graduate and leave us and move on to college and beyond. So I think really the best part of the abilities model is that it reminds students that they can and should be successful without our help. And that's really the ultimate goal that we have in the upper school, is that they don't need us anymore by the time they graduate, which I know is kind of scary for everybody and the adults in their lives, but that's what we want. We understand, however, that the students learn these skills on at their own pace. This is why the small class size and the advisory system. The advisors follow the students for 4 years, so they have an advisor freshman year, and that advisor follows them until they graduate. This is so important. We get to know the kids and really get to check in on them, and they come and talk to their advisors and the other adults around them when they need to. So our role as the adults in this community is just to offer them increasing choices and independence. So we remind them of what they learned if they came to us from the middle school. We remind them of those systems, the Get Ready, Do Done, the binder system, the organizational systems they learn, but also offer them increasing choices. And they thrive on that autonomy, as we know teenagers often do. And we've noticed that if they choose the systems or the supports or the strategies, and that choice is their own, that they will oftentimes consistently use that really through the rest of their schooling. One of the highlights of my year really is when graduates come back and return. They oftentimes do that around the holidays or during college breaks. And I get to sit down and chat with them. And oftentimes I'll ask them what worked well for them or what strategies they used or what didn't work well for them or what they wish they'd known. And it's a chance for me to get to find out what executive functioning strategies or supports were the most useful for them, or what they wish they would know, or what they wish they had known when they're in school, so that I can make sure to pass those on to the kids that we have in school currently. My favorite example of this is students that I taught years ago, and actually in the English class, who really didn't want to do any sort of organization when it came to her writing. That executive functioning piece of writing was really not her thing. So we used to sort of go back and forth about that a bit. And she reluctantly would organize, would do brainstorming and organization for that. And after her sophomore year of college, she came back and sort of grudgingly admitted, she said, actually, I did do outlines. It really helped. And she became a writing tutor in college, and after helping her friends and roommates in her dorm. And it ended up being such a huge success for her. So I was really excited about that. This year, we started a new program. It's the Community-Oriented Reflective Education Period, CORE for short. And part of that includes focused time spent on executive functioning. This is delivered in grade level breakouts, so that we can deliver 9th grade support differently from 12th grade. So it's really tailored to the level of each student. And we also started using a block schedule. And this is helpful because it gradually helps students transition to a schedule that more closely resembles college, when they won't necessarily be meeting with their classes every day, and they have to plan their time and study time accordingly. So that's been really helpful. So far, the feedback we've gotten from the students has been positive. We work with new students and rising 9th graders on organization and managing material and documents in orientation. And then we follow up particularly with 9th graders in that core period, as well as other areas of executive functioning. We emphasize choice and self-advocacy. I've mentioned that before, but it really is important. Sometimes it takes a little bit for students to find the system that works for them. But with some persistence and follow-up, they usually find something. Again, it depends on the students. Some take a little bit more time than others. Some examples of other ways that upper schools, sorry, I'm having trouble talking today. Upper school teachers support executive functioning in their classes. These are scaffolded, so there's more substantial support in 9th and 10th grade. Longer assignments that are broken down into smaller steps, graphic organizers, rubrics for assignments. We post homework on the portal, but it's also teachers talk about it and put it somewhere in the classroom. Providing online worksheets or homework and paper copies too, so students have their choice and they can download things if they get lost. Allowing students to submit work online or physically too, and providing instructions and scaffolded practice on how to take notes. So guided notes, we find that particularly helpful. We also have tutorials about 3 times a week. Those are after lunch. So students may have study hall, but tutorials is like office hours in college, which is a dedicated time for students to either do some work on their own, freshmen and sophomores, or with their advisor. And they can also check out of their tutorials to go and get extra help from a particular teacher. And that is mandatory for some students if they're struggling. You can see on the left-hand photo, that is a Spanish classroom, and this sort of support that they get in, say, a foreign language would be this instruction support that they would have in their other academic area classes. The teachers try to be consistent, particularly in those freshman level classes. So another important piece of executive functioning in the upper school is test and exam prep. We structure this more formally for the 9th and 10th grade and provide test and exam review guides and guided test review strategies in 9th and 10th grade. We have an exam review session well before exams for 9th and 10th. And test and exam prep for 11th and 12th grade involves learning how to take ownership for this process. For example, I teach the how to make your own study guide and walk through the, a session where they ultimately, by that point, oftentimes I'll ask them, what am I going to tell you? Or what do you expect to hear from me? And they'll sort of walk through. We're going to, you break things down into small chunks. We start with a schedule of exam prep, and they'll talk me through my own lecture about how to get ready for exams. We do calendar skills and time management. You can see an example on the left of a bulletin board that goes up in stages for how to get ready for exams. This year, actually, I worked with the Improv Club and school president to create an exam prep movie. The upper school classmen were able to sort of share their expertise on exam and test prep with the 9th and 10th graders. It was actually really entertaining. The parts that the students did was entertaining. The part I did was not so entertaining, but they did a great job. It was really funny and informative, I hope. We do a lot of work in the classroom. Why we do a lot of work in the classroom? From my experience, the students who see the most success in improving their executive functioning often have a similar system at home, which I get is challenging. This is something that even my years of teaching executive functioning, I find challenging sometimes too. We try to work with students to develop systems that are sustainable at home and at school. I think that students do much better with routines and knowing the expectations. So we have some resources available too to try to help. And by the way, the first item there, Launchpad. A Launchpad is like a place at home, usually close to whatever door you use as an exit at the beginning of the day and as an entrance at the end of the day, where all the stuff goes. So coats, keys, backpacks, things like that. It just helps launch you at the beginning of the day so that we're not scrambling around trying to get out the door, which even with a Launchpad that we have, sometimes that still happens, but it does make it a little bit easier when it works.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Karen, Becky, and Michelle. That was wonderful and very informative. So as a reminder to our guests, if you have specific questions, you can feel free to send them directly to me in the chat. It looks like we have a couple of questions. So the first one is, could you talk about how McLean teaches these skills in the summer camp on study skills?
Yes. So it's funny that you asked that because I am the teacher for the Summer Edge Study Skills course.
Perfect.
And so, yes, it is very much, it's a really fun course because we actually take a lot of students have summer work that they need to get done that they will avoid and they'll procrastinate and they'll push off. And so we actually set goals for ourselves in that 2-week course. And every day we check in about where are we at in the stages of, are you still in the get ready phase? Have you not moved? Have you not even gotten to the get ready phase? Are you in the do phase? And the kids have to come up to the board and kind of mark out where they're at as I project it up there. So it's really nice as we offer encouragement to students or we brainstorm, how are you going to accomplish those goals? But another big piece of that class is actually learning more about themselves as a person and what are some of your strengths? How do you handle, problem solving? So we do some social emotional pieces of, are you a little bit more introverted? Just how do you respond to setbacks? Do you have strong coping mechanisms? And then we also look through the lens of, as an academic student. So we really try to help students figure out who they are and then work with their strengths, and then identify what supports do you need if you have issues with attention, or you bring a little bit more emotionality to something, and it interferes with your ability to even initiate a task. So it's really fun to see the kids really be honest throughout the summer program. And then again, we were practicing a lot of Sarah Ward's get ready, do done. We're visualizing schedules. I actually have an entire timeline that goes out on the floor, and the kids walk out their day. So again, the more proficient they become with those visualization tasks, they can actually walk you through their day from 6 a.m. until the evening time. And it's really fun to see them do that. I also, in the summer Edge course, I know Karen mentioned this a little bit with written expression in organization, or just study skills, or studying for exams rather. We also review brain frames. I don't know if any of you have heard of brain frames before. I won't remember the name of the speech language pathologist who developed it, but it's really a fantastic tool of where students take information and they actively do something with it. And so they're organizing the language in a way that is going to be more meaningful to them. And it's a great tool to then use, but they have created it themselves. So not just doing a study guide or the problems that were provided or doing flashcards, but actually let's create a brain frame. And there's 6 core brain frames that I teach in that class. And it's really fun to give them a new tool that's based in research. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Becky.
Yeah.
So the next question that we have is about, it's for new students coming into McLean for upper school, and what services or support we offer them with executive functioning challenges if they're coming from a school that they've not had much support in.
Well, part of the first step is the orientation, which is usually 2 days of getting to know the school, getting to know how to put accommodations in place if that's something that is applicable. We talk a lot about getting organized and sort of those executive functioning, both in with materials or time. And so it's something that all of the 9th graders get, and any new student coming in gets as well. And then through the core program, we do have focus on executive functioning, because we do have a number of students who come from outside of McLean. So all of this might be familiar to students who are rising from our 8th grade, but we have a number of students who are new to McLean. So we know that it's making sure we're all on the same page, and reinforcement is important, even if it's something you've had for a number of years here. We still need to reinforce these skills and make sure that we still have scaffolded practice with these things. But it's just a given that in the classes, even though it's content, college prep content area classes, we still know that it's best practice to have things presented in a way that things are scaffolded, that there is support, that if we see a student struggling, we meet every day as part of a student support team in the upper school, and teachers let us know if they're concerned about a student, so that if we need to put other things in place, more check-ins with an advisor, or something along those lines, that we get those put in place too. So, but a lot of times the students are coming in and they're really, even if they haven't had time at McLean, they sort of fit right in and get the same sorts of support that their peers get. And the transition is usually pretty smooth.
Great. Thank you, Karen. So we have a couple more. As a reminder, if you have any questions, just go ahead and send them to me directly. So this one's a little bit longer. My child sometimes has like 5 or more tests and quizzes on any given day, a project due the same day, and then just homework too. it's really hard to manage sometimes all those competing priorities. What does it look like in middle and upper school at McLean? Is it the same? Are things more spaced out? And do teachers know what other teachers are assigning?
Yes. So in middle school, we have a test calendar that test project quiz calendar that our teachers use in each grade level. So, and that is posted for students to view, and they're not allowed to have more than 2 assessments or projects due on any particular day. Specifically for that reason, we want their best work. We want them to be available to demonstrate their understanding, and when they have that much on their plate, it's just not a reasonable expectation to expect them to be able to manage that in middle school. That's it's just, again, for us, because we know we're working with students who may have weaknesses with executive functioning, we want to build those skills up before they get into upper school, where the demands will increase, where it is a little bit more developmentally appropriate to give them a little bit more. But we are always looking at research around homework and exams. And this year we're actually moving more toward project-based assessments at the end of each semester, so that students can demonstrate their understanding in more than just a standard assessment or essay type format. So I hope that answered the question for middle school, but I know, again, the rigor in upper school increases a little bit.
So we still do keep track of tests and major assessments in upper school we have an upper school Google Calendar that just everybody sees and can log their assessments there. It is a little bit more complicated just because we don't have classes. There's some classes that are specific to grade level, and there's some classes that are not. So, which is actually really nice for the students, because they do make and form friendships and socialize across the four grade levels, which is nice when you have a small school, but it does get a little complicated because you have some freshmen who are in upper level classes, and vice versa. But it is our practice not to give I think it's beyond 3 major assignments or something like that on a given day, or assessments, sorry, on a given day. I'm not sure the exact number. I'd have to look at it again. But what's great is that if a student feels overwhelmed or feels like there's a lot going on, they are encouraged to advocate for themselves. So for example, if I do teach a freshman lit class every year, and if one of my freshmen has a test for me and comes and says, I have a project due in biology and I have a major test in my algebra 2 or my algebra class, can I have an extra day or 2 on this on your assignment? Then that's something that we are very flexible with, especially if the students advocate. They are really good actually at talking through what their difficulty is and brainstorming plans for working around that. And that's something that we encourage right from the beginning. If that's difficult for them at first, and we get that, sometimes freshmen are not really comfortable with talking to teachers at first. By the time they leave us, they generally are. It's really hard to avoid us and to avoid our help. We're usually really eager to be like, let me help. What can I do? So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. And this is a question for all 3 of you. On average, how long would you say students are spending on homework each night?
I can start that and we can work up, I suppose.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of research out there that the homework at a younger level is really not very beneficial to the increased knowledge base for the students, and we value also that time, that free time. They work so hard during the day, and so giving some of that downtime. So when it starts at the kindergarten and first grade do not have homework at McLean. We encourage reading together with parents, but that's more at their leisure. Starting in second grade, they begin to do a reading log. So just taking more accountability for being responsible for doing it every night and marking that and bringing it back in. And then we slowly increase it. So in third grade, they have reading log every night, but they also have 2 nights of math homework that should not take more than 15 to 20 minutes at the very most. We focus on all review concepts. It shouldn't be something that they're going to be frustrated with. And at any point, if it becomes frustrated, the teachers are very vocal and in the idea of the parents sharing that frustration so that we can alter and accommodate that, because it should be more of that practice of the routine and the executive functioning piece. And then in 4th grade, we have reading log every night, and they write a little response or a summary of what they read. So increasing that responsibility. And then they have 2 nights of math homework on Monday, Wednesday, and 2 nights of writing homework on Tuesday, Thursday. And that kind of builds on going into middle school and helping with that transition. And Becky can continue there.
Yes. So in 5th grade, they will only have homework to begin the school year, the first semester. They will only have homework in their core academic classes, English, Lit, and Math. And they will never have homework over the weekend. And then in the second semester, we expand homework to include some of the electives like language, science, history, and so their workload increases a little bit more. We also will typically, again, walk through students and help them estimate how much time an assignment should take, which really helps them build self-awareness around when they're spending too much time, or perhaps they are stuck and then they need to reach out to the teacher and let them know, you mentioned that this assignment should take 10 minutes. I'm 15 minutes into this assignment. So I'm going to document that on my homework. You'll email the teacher, but we never want students to be in a position where, especially in 5th and 6th grade, where they're spending, hours on homework every night, because again, it's about building up some independence on applying skills that they've already learned, like Michelle was saying. So in 6th grade, they'll start the year with homework in any of their classes, elective or the core academic classes. And then again, we'll have homework potentially assigned over the weekend. They start to bring their devices home in 5th and 6th grade, so that they can have those and they can practice bringing them back to school, making sure that they're charged. And then in 7th and 8th grade, the demands increase again, and there may be, an hour and a half, potentially up to 2. But again, we have study hall time available in school for students that would like to take a little bit off of their load for home, especially if they're involved in athletics or theater or other activities outside of school. And we do, again, encourage that they advocate if they, something comes up and they were not able to get something done, to ask for that extension, to let a teacher know why, they were only able to get through 5 of the 10 comprehension questions. So we are very accommodating, and again, we really want to build up those skills to manage the workload. We are not trying to overwhelm students with hours of homework each night. Yeah.
So in upper school, it really can vary a bit, because we have, the teachers aren't giving homework just for the sake of giving homework. They're conscientious about it. But things can vary from an on-level 9th grade class to senior honors classes. We have AP classes, and if students are enrolling in honors classes or AP classes, they can expect homework. They can expect to have more work in those classes. So it does depend on the classes that students choose. And of course, in upper school, there is more choice than the other divisions, as is age appropriate. And also it depends sometimes on the student too. Some students just work faster through material than others. And some students need breaks in between, time that they spend doing homework. Sometimes when students or parents notice that too much time is being spent on homework, or it's just taking away from other things, then we problem solve that and look at where the homework is being done, what time it's being done. Are there breaks that are needed? Do we need to move where homework is being done? Are we looking at the kind of assignment? Do we need to limit, say, numbers of, do we need to look at the number of problems done one day versus another, because we do have block schedules and maybe they're trying to do all of the homework for math the day before it's being done, as opposed to breaking it up into 2 chunks. So we do try to problem solve a bit when we think that when it looks like too much homework is being done or it's taking too long. There's a lot that we can do to sort of figure out what is going on. Sometimes it just is a matter of maybe looking at the course load. Maybe we need to be strategic about when we take certain classes. Sometimes with teenagers, it's that multitasking is happening. It happens with adults, it happens with teenagers. And we have some frank discussions about that too. So there's just a lot of variation in the amount of time that students spend at home, right, doing work. It can depend on whether or not a student has study hall at school. It can depend on how much work happens at school. Sometimes study hall is very effective and efficient. Sometimes not as much work is done, because honestly, the kids can get worn out during the school day, but may get a little bit more energy at home. Depends on sports. So there's a lot of variation, but I would say that anywhere from an hour to 2, maybe a little bit more for those students who are taking a heavy AP course load and a lot of honors classes in the last couple of years of high school. So
perfect. Thank you. I know that we're running short on time. There are just 2 more questions, so I'm hoping we can answer those in about 20 seconds or less. So the first one, actually, speaking of sports, how does McLean balance students in sports and other school activities with the classroom?
Well, students that get excused early for athletics will, again, have extensions provided to them if those are needed. But and as Karen noted, we can adjust schedules to add a study hall, to remove an elective, if they, are unable to find enough time outside of school to get work done, or if it, becomes problematic. So study halls are a great tool for them to use. Also, it can be a really good learning opportunity to be more effective during independent work time in the class when given that time. And so conversations around that often are helpful as well for, our athletes when thinking about their evening schedules and what can you realistically push off to the evening. So, but we encourage their involvement in extracurricular activities. We value people being well-rounded and getting time to enjoy their interests.
yes,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
We find, well, first of all, the core period is oftentimes the last period of the day, which allows some flexibility in when students miss that end of the day. Sometimes happens for early dismissal. So that does make it a little bit easier, but similar to middle school, so sometimes students, if they're getting really busy, a study hall is able to alleviate some of that. There are some students too who find that when they're in the middle of a season, they're more efficient with their time. Some students are more, some students less, but I have some students who really, as soon as they start their season, whatever their favorite season is, they actually get more efficient because they just find that they prioritize their free time for work. So it really depends. But of course, we make sure that kids have the time to dedicate to things that help them become a better rounded person. And if sports are important to them and that helps them feel a sense of belonging to a team, expertise, getting some of the energy out, that's really important.
Perfect. Okay. And then there's just one more. I know that we are at the end of our time, but this one came in and I think it'll be great to address. How do we support high IQ students in the upper school if they're not self-motivated?
I think what's interesting, when we have classes that are challenging for kids who have high IQs, and they get to be around kids who have similar interests, sometimes that can take care of the motivation itself. Boredom can be very sapping of motivation. So kids who are bright, who have found that because maybe some things are difficult for them, or getting homework in is difficult or something like that, they might not always be in classes with other kids who are equally able to sort of reach into the high analytical areas or find areas of interest. When they get to be able to be in classes where they are challenged, where they find that they're able to have great discussions and they still have that support, and it's pushed into the class, so they're not, having to go out to have extra time for a test or something like that. I think that is motivating. And the other thing too is that there's oftentimes a really great connection with the teachers here. The teachers, because it's a small environment and the teachers really get to know the students, that also is a way that the students find some motivation too, just getting to have great conversations and check-ins with the teachers. I don't think there's any magic formula for it, but I think when students really find something that they find interesting and find something that they are excited about, it's like the further along they get into upper school, sometimes that is just what drives them forward, when they start to see, oh, I can study this. This could be an area that I could go into in college, or a career path that I could take, and they know what they need to do in order to get there. When they start to see that, the older they get, can be motivating. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you all so much again for your time. Thank you, Karen, Becky, and Michelle. So I hope that everyone enjoyed today's webinar. For those of you that are learning more about McLean, our application deadline is January 20th, so it's just around the corner. If you haven't yet visited McLean, I encourage you to come for a visit. We have a few more small group tours that are scheduled. You can check our website for that information. And we're happy to be of help to you as you explore our school. So feel free to reach out to anyone in the admissions